Hi, and welcome to another Seeking Asylum review. I'm your host, Bobby, and last time we looked at the movie Transmorphers Fall of Man. That 2009 movie was a prequel to today's topic of discussion, 2007's Transmorphers. It is, of course, a mockbuster of the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, and is infinitely better than that flaming piece of shit. Goofy and ridiculous, sure, but still way better than that. So join me as we explore what makes it so much fun. Before I get into my usual plot synopsis and then discuss the director, writing, acting, so on and so forth, I want to discuss the release of the movie first. When it first got released, I don't know if it was the very first batch of DVDs that came out or just one of the earliest batches of DVDs to come out for the movie, there was an encoding authorization issue with the DVDs. So the audio was not synced up properly. Watching the movie like that was ridiculous. It looked like a really bad dubbed kaiju film. It was so distracting, so hard to watch. My first viewing of the movie was not a good one. I didn't enjoy it, couldn't get into it, but it had nothing to do against the actors or the cinematography or the editing. It's because watching it was like watching something that was clearly off and not meant to be that way. It's like if you were to watch a movie set at night while wearing sunglasses and then complain it's too dark. Take off your sunglasses. I contacted the asylum and said, oh, we had an issue with that. We have recalled most of those discs and you can get a new one here, 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 and they sent me some links and I got a new one. And it's very, very, very refreshing and very, very nice to watch the proper audio synced version of this movie, because that allows you to properly enjoy it the way it was meant to. That's just a fun little extra tidbit for you about my original viewing of this film. I have seen it multiple times since getting the proper disc in terms of the audio and that sort of thing. I had not watched it for years though, upon rewatching it for this review, and it holds up really well, I'm pleased to say. With all that out of the way, here's the plot. At the end of Fall of Man, we discover our protagonists failed in their mission, and the invading alien robot armada succeeds. They crash. They come to Earth and they take over. We then flash forward 200-ish years from that, and that's when Transmorphers takes place, wherein the remaining human governing body and military outlets have discovered a new way of fighting them. So they send two military squads out on a sort of death mission, kind of last coup against the robots, and that's what we follow throughout the course of the film. Of course, there's interpersonal drama and that kind of thing, but most of the film is taken up by the planning of the mission, the execution of the mission, and the various action scenes. Director Lee Scott first came to my attention through his Asylum films. He's done several of them, including Hillside Cannibals, The Hitchhiker, Dragon, King of the Lost World, and of course, this film we're talking about today, Transmorphers. He has directed, produced, written, and starred in movies as well, not just for the Asylum, but outside of them, he has actually gone on to start his own production company, and he's made movies like Blue Bird Horror, the remake of the Dunwich Horror, and Chrome Angels through that company, as well as the miniseries Witches from Oz. Anyways, I really like his style. He's a great visual director in terms of making the world and what you're witnessing feels real and lived in and that sort of thing. So I'm rewatching this film, and it's after I rewatched Transmorphers Fall of Man, after I shot my review for that film. But as I'm rewatching this first film, Transmorphers, I realized what makes Transmorphers Fall of Man only okay. Totally watchable, totally decent sci-fi robot action, low budget film. But what was that thing that made it not as instantly, oh my god, this is what B movies should be, as Transmorphers has? And that's world building. The world in Transmorphers Fall of Man is boring. It's just our world with an invading alien robots. There's nothing to it. It looks dull in that regard. Here, though, even with their limited resources and their limited budget, they go balls out crazy with world building. There are all these crazy little touches in the big shots of the one underground city the humans have. A lot of interesting surface stuff as well, seeing what the robots constructed, what they destroyed, that kind of thing. The world this movie takes place in feels lived in, and it feels natural. And that's a really tough thing to pull off, especially given it's an asylum movie on a low budget. Because all asylum movies are on a low budget. Even their higher end stuff, like Sharknado, low budget given the number of special effects and that sort of thing that they have. So that's really commendable. And that makes watching this film just that much more engaging for me. I believe in watching a movie, you need to be able to buy into its world. You need to be able to buy into the universe it sets up. Every movie, every book, every play, every TV show exists in its own world, has its own rules for that universe. And even if it's meant to be very close to our real life, it can never quite be that way, because certain things either won't be shown and you take them for granted, like people going to the bathroom, or you need to make coincidence and serendipity happen all the time in order for certain things to work. Some things are great about doing that kind of thing. Some things are not. This is great about that. That's not the only strength in which Lee Scott brings to the movie. He also brings a very clear, crisp eye for action. The action in this one's really exciting and really well done. A lot of it, all of it, absolutely all of it, is at night. Because the sun doesn't hit the earth anymore. The alien robots have blanketed the sky in a very Matrix-y-like move, so the sun does not hit the surface ground anymore. So every action scene's at night, but with a few exceptions, it's never that dark. It's never too hard to see. Actors do a good job of fighting against a CGI robot that's not actually there, so that leads some credibility and some strength there. Happily, the writing, also by Lee Scott, makes us invested in these characters and their plight. Some of your big supporting characters fall into cliches. There's a crazy doctor who built an android lady because he's a crazy scientist doctor dude, so of course he did. You know what I mean? Like, there's the hard-boiled, not hard-boiled, but there's the hard-assed, no-nonsense government woman who doesn't like the main character because he doesn't play by their rules kind of thing. So the movie definitely relies on stereotypes for that sort of thing. But the backstories are fairly interesting, and I think the actors, for the most part, do a good job and are earnest. And the set design is amazing. I really like the look of this film. It is fairly average sci-fi stuff, but they throw in, once again, a lot of little details to make it look lived in and realistic. And there's a sequence in a bunker in which a group of soldiers are about to go off on this crazy suicide mission, and part of their teammates are actually staying behind. They're not part of that mission, so they kind of fight. And just the weird little lights on the wall and seeing the computer console at the door and stuff makes it feel like it's a real interesting world, and those touches help make the movie more engaging and overcome its flaws in an interesting way. Anyways, that's kind of on the point I was just making. Sorry about that. The story they're telling is a bit samey, if you will. It's a bit, we've seen this kind of thing before. It borrows from The Matrix, it borrows from Blade Runner, it borrows from a lot of Isaac Asimov stuff, Philip K. Dick. It takes a lot of typical sci-fi tropes, but it brings an energy to them, and it makes the movie completely watchable. The plot doesn't really hold too many surprises. The big one, the big twist, you can probably guess a mile away. But it's really interesting to see how they pay that off, and I liked that idea. I don't want to spoil that, but still. Playing the main character of Warren Mitchell is Matthew Wolff, who's so earnest. He's trying so hard. He's given some ridiculously goofy dialogue to work with, but you can tell that he's trying to make it work, and he's trying to sound believable, and there are times where he succeeds, especially when discussing a former coup he led against the human government. So that's fairly interesting. But he can't make every goofy line work, and that actually leads to some happily unintentional amusing moments. Playing Karen Nadir, who is caught in a love triangle of sorts between Warren Mitchell and Eliza Swinson's General Van Ryberg, is Amy Weber, and she's good. I feel that she gives the most nuanced performance, and that she brings the most to the character in terms of writing versus acting and what they bring to the table. Because the character is rather dull. She is angry at Warren, and she's now married to General von Ryberg, and they do have some unresolved feelings for each other, and that's it. And then she goes off on a mission and needs to be found. That's her entire character arc. But the actress does a really good job. She's a really empathetic character, and I don't know if that was there in the script. Playing General Van Ryberg is frickin' Eliza Swenson, who has done songs for Asylum movies, who has starred in such crazy genre fare as the Penny Dreadful Picture Show, and she's great in everything. In everything she's ever done. I love her. She's awesome. And she's no exception here. She's a hard military badass type who doesn't take shit from anybody. And despite that being a super cliched character, she sells it really well. She's believable there. She's believable in the action sequences. She has really good chemistry with all of her co-stars. She's a lot of fun to watch. This movie was also the introduction, was also my introduction to Griff First. You've heard me discuss him in other movie reviews as well. And this was the first movie I remember seeing him in. It may be not the first one I ever saw him in, but it's the first one I noticed him in, if that makes sense. And upon a rewatch, I realized why. I haven't seen him give a performance like this since, and that's just a good thing. His character is this manic, crazed ball of anger and energy, and I haven't seen him play a character like that before either, and it's great. He is so much fun. He does such a good job that even when his character doesn't make a whole lot of sense, you still buy it because he's just that much fun to watch. The mad scientist guy who created the android you heard me mention earlier is Dr. Volozovo Alexavich, played by Michael Tower, who, instead of playing things crazy and over the top, a la something like Krieger in Archer, he actually plays things very small, very nibbage. Like, he is so busy thinking, he doesn't have time to do anything else. It's really an interesting performance. I don't know if it totally works though. It feels sometimes like he's stalling, trying to remember his lines, but I don't think that was the intent behind it. It's just there's some awkward pauses in there that I think should have either been edited out or worked through somehow, because it does make listening to the character a bit awkward at times. Of course, I'd be remiss if I did not discuss the narrator who bookends the film. The first part, the prologue, is him discussing the robots coming down. We sent a message into space, it was returned, they were not friendly. He's doing your basic setup stuff. Then, I don't want to spoil what he says at the end, because I don't want to give that away, but he appears then as well. And it's freaking Rhett Giles. Rhett Giles is amazing and awesome, and his performance here, I mean, it's just a voiceover narration. He never appears on screen or anything, is perfectly okay. I'm just excited he's in this movie, though. There's a ton of supporting characters, major and minor, that I don't have time to get into all of them. But everyone is trying their hardest. Some of their dialogue is a bit goofy, and sometimes they don't deliver it with the right intonation, in my opinion. There's a bunker sequence you heard me discussing earlier where it's actually happening is that the teammates going on the suicide mission are angry at the teammates staying behind, because the teammates staying behind are divvying up the teammates who are going on the mission stuff, and they're vying for who gets which bunk after these people are dead. They're not dead yet, so they have a right to be mad, but their way of mad, at least for some of them, sounds a little more whiny to me. But I mean, that could just be me. Somebody else could be, oh, that's exactly how I sound when I get mad, so I don't know. The cinematography by Stephen Park is really good. Again, a lot of it's at night, so lighting is also equally as important, but you can see mostly everything, and they do a good job of highlighting the robots and the action and the spectacle of what you're seeing in a really interesting, engaging manner. The editing by Kristen Quintrell and Lee Scott is also good, but I think the cinematography is a bit stronger and a bit richer, if you will. The editing hits some nice action beats. However, they do some really cool stuff with split screen, but they don't follow through on that idea. They have a style, and they utilize the split screen when they use it fairly well, but I think there's only like 3 sequences where it happens, so instead of feeling like an interesting stylistic choice, it's more of a why the hell is this going on moment. I think I get what they were going for in those scenes, but I think they should have done more split screen. And had it been any major transitional time, or any time we're following a ton of these characters on the missions or trying to get something accomplished, it should have happened. That way, it would have been more of a whole motif going through the film. As is, the sequences are done fine, but they feel a little random and kind of awkward, if you will. The music by Chris Ridenhour and Eliza Swenson, who you just heard me talk about as an actress, is good. This score is only okay for me. It's weird to say about Chris Ridenhour's score. It's alright. It does its job. It never gets too loud or overpowering the dialogue at all. But he never got the sense that there was danger. The score never added an element of atmosphere or of mood to what I was watching. It's perfectly serviceable, and the score during the end credits is great, but it never really takes off the way it does in something like Transmorphers Follow Man or Zombies, because Zombies' score is to die for. All that brings us to the most important part of the movie, and the thing that the people will most definitely be thrown off by. That is the special effects. This is a huge huge number of people who did the special effects. I don't know if you can see my computer screen too well, but that entire page going down some because you can't even see it all. Everybody involved in the special effects. I can't name everybody. That would be impossible. But given the time frame, given the amount of money the asylum had at that moment, this was before Sharknado, before they kind of hit the big time, if you will, with those sorts of films, and that sort of thing. Special effects are good for an asylum movie at the time, but for an asylum movie at the time, the special effects were bad. Period. For any movie released during that time, they were cheap looking. They didn't totally move properly. They looked like exactly what they were. A low budget genre film using a lot of CGI quickly and cheaply. Transmorphers is no exception. Robots' designs are really cool, just like in the prequel, which clearly it took cues from this film. I like the robots' designs a lot. I think the robots themselves look cool in that regard. But they are not well executed. They look like plastic. They move very stiffly. I know it's unfair of me to criticize a movie that's almost 10 years old to something that is, say, only 2 or 3 years old by the same studio, but if you look at something like zombies and the way the fur moves on those animals and just the amount of detail put onto them, it's leagues better than something like Transmorphers. And I get it. They're a studio, they evolve, they get better with every film they do in those technical skills. I get that. But given the kind of movie it is and how much the special effects are important to it, you're going to laugh at the way the robots move and at the way they are integrated into the backgrounds and that sort of a thing. Again, the human actors do what they can to make the robots seem believable, but sometimes the effects just aren't there. Does that detract from the movie? I don't think so. I think it enhances the enjoyment of the movie by adding an unintentionally hilarious feel, along with the ridiculous dialogue in the standard story. You get a movie that's kind of the definition of so bad it's good, with having a lot of great elements still within it, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if it does. Transmorphers remains one of my all-time favorite asylum films. It's absurd, it's goofy, it's ridiculous, and it's a shit ton of fun. It's so much fun that whatever flaws it might have don't matter. You put the movie on and you're going to be enjoying yourself. You'll either be laughing with it, at it, or you'll be engrossed in the pretty solid cinematography, lighting, and action scenes. So there's something that everybody can enjoy in the movie. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.